Picture a navy. Hundreds of ships, the most powerful fleet in the world, sailing toward a single city to end an empire. The men on board have done this before. They are not afraid. And then the water catches fire. Not the ships. The water. A wall of liquid flame rolls across the surface of the sea, clinging to hulls, to sails, to skin, and the more the sailors pour water on it, the brighter it burns. Men throw themselves into the waves to escape the heat, and the waves are burning too. Within hours, the greatest fleet of its age is a field of ash drifting on the open sea. This actually happened. More than once. And the weapon that did it was so secret, so feared, and so perfectly hidden, that its formula was carried into the grave, and we have never been able to make it again. This is the story of Greek fire. And the strangest part isn't how it worked. It's how completely we lost it. To understand the weapon, you have to understand the desperation that created it. By the late 7th century, the Byzantine Empire, the surviving eastern half of Rome, was running out of world. A new power had risen with terrifying speed and was swallowing province after province. City after city fell. And then the enemy fleets turned toward the prize at the center of everything, Constantinople. The richest, most fortified city on earth. The last wall holding back the tide. If Constantinople fell, the empire ended. And in the year 674, an enormous fleet arrived to make sure it did. The city should not have survived. Every probability said it was over. It survived because of a secret that had just walked through its gates. His name, as the sources give it, was Kallinikos, a refugee. An architect, or an engineer, who had fled the conquered lands and arrived in Constantinople carrying something the empire had never seen. Not an army. Not gold. A formula. A way to make fire behave like nothing fire had ever done before. Here's where honesty matters, because this is a real mystery and not a fairy tale. We don't know exactly who Kallinikos was. We don't know whether he invented the weapon or simply carried an older idea out of a burning region and into the right hands at the right moment. What we do know is that from this point on, the Byzantines possessed something that turned the sea itself into a weapon. And they guarded it like the survival of the world depended on it. Because it did. So what did it actually do? Imagine standing on the deck of an enemy ship. Across the water, on the prow of a Byzantine vessel, you see a strange bronze tube, a nozzle, shaped on some ships like the head of a beast. There's a hiss. A roar. Sailors describe a sound like thunder, and smoke like a dragon breathing. And then it comes. A jet of liquid fire, pumped under pressure through that tube, arcing across the gap between the ships and landing on everything you own. Your sails. Your deck. Your men. It sticks. It spreads. And when you do the one thing every instinct screams at you to do, when you throw water on it, it doesn't die. It grows. That is the detail that broke men. Fire you cannot drown. The ancient accounts say it could only be smothered with sand, or strong vinegar, or, when there was nothing else, old urine. Out on the open sea, surrounded by the one substance that should save you, you had none of the things that could. Here's what made Greek fire more than a flamethrower. It was a weapon that attacked the mind before it touched the body. Think about what it did to a sailor. Everything he had been taught his whole life, water stops fire, jump in the sea, you'll be safe, was suddenly a lie that would kill him. The weapon didn't just burn ships. It dissolved the most basic rule a human being trusts about the physical world. Crews are recorded turning and fleeing at the mere rumor that the Byzantine fire ships were coming. You don't run from a weapon because of what it does to your body. You run because of what it does to your certainty. And so a city that should have fallen, held. The great fleet of 674 was shattered. A second, even larger invasion a generation later met the same fire and met the same end. Twice, this single weapon saved Constantinople, and with it, an empire that would last another 700 years. Now we reach the heart of it. Because the Byzantines understood exactly what they were holding. A weapon like this isn't powerful if your enemy can copy it. So they did something almost without parallel in the ancient world, they buried the knowledge. The formula was a state secret of the highest order, known, the sources suggest, to only a handful of people, the imperial family, and the single family of technicians who manufactured it, passing it from father to son like a sacred inheritance. The process was split apart so that no one person, perhaps, knew the whole thing. The raw ingredients, the proportions, the temperature, the way it was pressurized and ignited, scattered across trusted hands so the complete picture lived nowhere but in the secret itself. One emperor, writing advice to his son on how to rule, went further. He warned the boy never, under any circumstances, to give the formula to a foreigner. And to discourage anyone who asked, he wove a story that an angel had delivered the fire to the first Christian emperor, and that a terrible curse would fall on any ruler who let the secret leave the empire. Whether he believed it or not didn't matter. Fear was the lock on the door. And here is the question everyone wants answered, and the honest answer is, we genuinely don't know. We can make educated guesses. Most scholars believe the core was petroleum. Natural crude oil or naphtha, which the empire could obtain from deposits around the Black Sea. To that base, theories add things like pine resin to thicken it and make it cling, and sulfur to feed the flame and produce that choking smoke. Some have argued for other ingredients entirely. But every reconstruction runs into the same wall, not one of them perfectly matches the descriptions of a fire that clung, spread, roared, and burned on open water. All at once, projected through a pressurized siphon without blowing the operators apart. So be careful with anyone who tells you they've cracked it. They have a theory. They do not have the recipe. The exact formula of Greek fire is, to this day, unknown. Which brings us to the most haunting part of the whole story. The very thing that made Greek fire unstoppable is the thing that destroyed it. They guarded it so well that they guarded it out of existence. Think about how knowledge survives. It survives by being written down, copied, taught, shared. Greek fire was deliberately none of those things. It lived in a few minds and a few hands, and nowhere else. So all it took was time. A line of keepers broken by war, by death, by the slow erosion of an empire shrinking century after century. The workshops fell silent. The men who knew passed away without passing it on. And one day there was simply no one left alive who could make it. By the empire's final centuries, Greek fire, the weapon that had twice saved the world, was a memory. A legend its own descendants could no longer reproduce. The lock had held so perfectly that even the owners could no longer open the door. So here's where we stand. We have a weapon that burned on water, terrified the strongest navies on earth, and saved an empire, built by someone whose method we'll never fully know, protected by a secret so total that it swallowed itself. Greek fire isn't a myth, and it isn't magic. It's something stranger, proof that knowledge is fragile. That a thing can be real, and powerful, and witnessed by thousands. And still vanish completely, simply because the people who held it decided that no one else should. It makes you wonder how much else has gone the same way. How many discoveries, formulas, and ideas once changed the world and then quietly disappeared, not because they were forgotten, but because they were guarded into silence. If you want more lost tech mysteries like this, subscribe, the next one is even stranger.